You've probably heard the word narcissist thrown around, right? Usually to describe someone who posts a few too many selfies. But what if I told you it's actually a really complex psychological idea with roots in an ancient myth? Today, we're going to unpack what narcissism really is, from a cautionary tale about a reflection to an actual clinical diagnosis.
So to really get a handle on this, we have to go way, way back. Because this whole idea, it all started with an ancient Greek myth about a guy who fell head over heels in love with his own reflection.
Yep, we're talking long before the first selfie was even a glimmer in someone's eye. The ancient Greeks and Romans were already telling this story about someone completely consumed by their own image. And honestly, it feels more relevant today than ever.
So the story goes like this. There was this incredibly handsome guy named Narcissus. He was so into himself that he rejected everyone who fell for him, including a poor nymph named Echo. Well, one day, he leans over a pool of water, sees his own reflection, and is just instantly captivated. He can't look away. He's completely obsessed, and he just stays there, staring at his own face, until he wastes away. It's the ultimate story about how destructive loving yourself too much can be.
Okay, so that's the myth. But let's fast forward to today, because narcissism is way more than just an old story. It's a real set of personality traits that psychologists study. So let's get into the modern scientific definition.
In the world of psychology, narcissism boils down to this: an inflated, grandiose self-image. We're talking about people who have this core, unshakable belief that they are smarter, better looking, and just plain more important than everyone else. And because of that, they feel like they deserve special treatment. Now, this isn't just healthy self-esteem, it's a deep-seated feeling of superiority. But here's where it gets really interesting. Narcissism isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. There are actually two main types. You've got grandiose narcissism, which is what we usually picture, the loud, extroverted, power-hungry person who loves the spotlight. But then there's vulnerable narcissism. These are the quiet, reserved types who, on the inside, have that exact same powerful sense of entitlement. They just get their feelings hurt way more easily. And yeah, as you can probably guess, with both of these types, there's often a dark side that shows up over time. People with strong narcissistic traits tend to act selfishly, which can lead them to make some pretty risky or unethical choices. In relationships, this might look like dishonesty or cheating. And if you dare challenge their perfect self-image, they can get really resentful, even aggressive. So we've been talking about narcissistic traits, but when does all this cross a line? When does it go from being a part of someone's personality to a full-blown clinical disorder? You know, this quote just hits the nail on the head. It really gets to the core of the problem. For the person who has extreme narcissistic traits, they might actually feel fantastic, on top of the world. But for their family, their friends, their coworkers, it can be incredibly painful. It's like an illness where the symptoms are felt most by everyone else. At its most extreme, these traits add up to something called narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD for short. We're talking about 1 to 2% of the population, and it's seen more often in men. And here's a key thing. It's a diagnosis only given to adults, because, let's face it, a little bit of self-centeredness is pretty normal when you're a kid. So what's the real difference between just having some of these traits and having NPD? Well, it all comes down to how much it messes up your life. For example, instead of just wanting admiration from your family, you see them only as an audience for how great you are. Or at your job, you can't handle a single piece of constructive criticism and you lash out. When these traits cause major, significant problems in your life and relationships, that's when it becomes a disorder. This all leads to the million-dollar question, right? What causes this? Is it something people are born with, or is it something that happens over time? Well, like with a lot of things in psychology, the answer is it's complicated. It turns out it's a mix of nature, nurture, and culture. Studies on twins show there's a really strong genetic link, even though we don't know the exact genes yet. But parenting plays a huge role too. For instance, parents who overpraise their child might contribute to that grandiose type, while parents who are cold or controlling might lead to the more vulnerable type. And then you layer on culture, especially in places that really value individualism and self-promotion. And you can actually see this cultural shift play out, especially in the United States. Since the 1970s, researchers have tracked a rise in these traits. Society moved from the community-focused 60s to the me-focused self-esteem movement. And now, well, now we have social media, which is basically the perfect stage for self-promotion. It doesn't necessarily cause narcissism, but it sure does give it a megaphone.
So, after hearing all of this, we're left with what's probably the most important question of all. If someone recognizes these traits in themselves, or if you see them in someone you care about, can anything be done? Can they actually change?
So let's just ask it plainly. Can a narcissist really truly improve on those negative traits? The answer is yes. Believe it or not, change is possible. Anything that promotes honest self-reflection, like psychotherapy, or practices that build compassion for other people, can make a huge difference. And you knew there was a but coming, right? It is incredibly difficult. For someone with full-blown NPD, the kind of hard, consistent work it takes to improve yourself is a massive, massive challenge. So yes, it's possible, but it takes a level of commitment that's really tough to maintain. And that kind of leaves us with one last challenging thought. For a narcissist, looking in the mirror is the easiest thing in the world. It's seeing their own flaws in that reflection that's nearly impossible. And that brings up a question for all of us, doesn't it? How willing are we to take a hard, honest look at our own reflections?